city is like a garden, and we do things to create better cycling infrastructure, support public transit. But the elephant in the room, the one thing that we're not doing, is weeding our garden, and the private automobile is that weed.
You have to be innovative in finding growing spaces in the city. I mean, the city is dense. You have to find little nooks and crannies.
Monsanto is a company, a biotech company, so they create GMOs. This march today is global. It's happening all over the world right now.
If we release GMOs increasingly into the environment, we seriously risk destabilizing ecosystems.
Where I live, in an 8-story high-rise, I have a little balcony with a few pots on it, but there's no sense of being in touch with the earth.
It's necessary for us as a civilization to have that connection with our food and to be able to establish it, and that all food doesn't come from boxes.
Here in the city, you know, we're short on space. It's a really dense place to live, but we have a lot of people who want to grow their own food for personal consumption.
In order for urban agriculture to even exist, you have to be innovative.
You can show people what their world and what their city could look like and what we can use all this concrete space for. Hi, I'm Shamez, and welcome to the Garden Car in Kensington Market. I think that a car that's full of plants gives us the message that we need more parks and less parking. We crafted the idea of how to trash a car in an artful way. We thought, why not turn it into a planter? It rebelliously sits in a parking spot. When it was first created, that was the idea, that we would steal back a parking spot from a car and put a garden there instead. Initially, it took about an afternoon to cut it open and fill it with dirt and plant plants in it. And over the course of the next week, artists painted it, and the community really grew to love it. So when the police towed it away, we got it towed back. And eventually, parking authorities scratching their heads, the police scratching their heads, the city not knowing what to do with it. When City Council looked at pictures of it and were asked if it can stay in the public right-of-way as art, they said yes. The front hood of the car is just a nice little lawn with grass on it, so you can fly around and take a nap if you want, read a book. In the middle, you've got a few little plants, a burning bush, some tomatoes, and the trunk is full of herbs, so you'll see mint and basil have gone wild in there. In the winter time, we need to really be careful about clearing the streets for snowplows. So every year, a different local resident will volunteer to take it in their parking spot. After the CN Tower, it's the most photographed object in Toronto. I don't know how many gardens make that many people happy, but you can see on the faces around that it really is something that touches people on an emotional level. A city is like a garden, and we do things to create better cycling infrastructure, support public transit, make a pedestrian realm that's friendly for people. But the elephant in the room, the one thing that we're not doing, is weeding our garden, and the private automobile is that weed. And unless we systematically remove or at least reduce our dependency on cars, we're never going to have healthy cities. So think of your city as a garden that you need to weed.
Hi, I'm Rachel. And I'm Dina, and we're the co-founders of Bowery Project.
Turning vacant spaces into growing places is really the essence of what we're trying to do. It's finding vacant lots or vacant land in the city of Toronto and growing food in it, animating it, educating the people who are in that community, and creating something useful, productive, and gorgeous in a vacant space that would otherwise be left void. So today we're at a development site that's owned by Taz Design, and they are developers in the city of Toronto, and they own this lot on King Street. Taz has given us permission to use their vacant lot as a growing space. In order to get to use a vacant lot, you have to have great relationships with either the city or private landowners, and you hope that they see creating a growing space as a valuable vacant lot or interim lot strategy for their land that's in transition. Our version of a mobile urban farm is made up of milk crates, and we've chosen milk crates as our containers because you wouldn't want to grow food in contaminated land, and most city land is likely to be contaminated. We've chosen milk crates because they're super modular, mobile, reusable, recyclable, and they look amazing. You can grow any kind of edible plant in a milk crate. You would choose probably not to grow a deep root vegetable, but we grow any kind of edibles that you want to eat.
This is a small 16 crate farm. We're growing chamomile, borage, and wild bergamot to attract bees. They're tomatoes, rosemary, chives, nasturtium, another tomato, marjoram, and arugula. Once you get your milk crate, you need to line it with landscape fabric.
The landscape fabric is a perfect material to line your crate with. It allows for aeration and water drainage, all while keeping the soil inside the crate.
The next step is to plant your plant.
A milk crate farm can be as big or as small as you want it to be. Right now we have a 250 crate farm at Todmorden Mills. Our mission, our hope is to have about a 5,000 crate farm that would take up about an acre of land, and we would have a much higher yield. And what's amazing about growing a milk crate specifically is that you can dismantle a farm, a milk crate farm, in 24 hours, whether it's 250 or 5,000 crates. You just need people and trucks. Animating vacant lots is like a win-win situation, whether it's city-owned land or privately owned land that is left vacant. Growing food allows void space to become a productive space, creating a more resilient city by adding green and growth to the city.
Hi, my name is Katie German. I'm from Food Share Toronto, and we're here at the school-grown rooftop on top of Eastdale Collegiate Institute, and we are the largest food-producing rooftop in the city. The rooftop we're on right now is 16,000 square feet, and we have about 300 or so planters, and then about 300 of those sub-irrigated bucket planters that we do our peppers in. So it's a lot of growing space that before just sat empty. We have a lot of crops that do really well up on the rooftop because of the unique space. So we capture a lot of heat up here that we wouldn't have sort of in a farm field necessarily. So we're able to bring our peppers usually to market a full 3 weeks earlier than all the other farmers because we're able to make use of that really hot microclimate. School Grown is a schoolyard farming social enterprise. It's a project of Food Share, and we farm at 2 high schools up here on the roof, and then we also farm at a school in Scarborough. And we hire high school students. They get a full-time summer job as farmers in the city.
What I enjoy about this experience is getting to learn different things, such as planting different varieties of plants, harvesting, seeding, and also like market skills, because after we harvest all of it, we take it to the market.
The students are able to take home harvest from the farm, and they do cook for themselves. We see that increase throughout the program because each week they actually participate in a cooking class, and we try and keep the focus of the cooking class on foods that we grow here.
I don't like store-bought food because it doesn't taste the same to me. This stuff is so much better. Here we don't use pesticides and it's harm-free.
This rooftop was once a tennis court and sat vacant for many years here in the school, and we've repurposed it into a garden, into a working farm actually. So we're selling at farmers markets and to restaurants, and otherwise this space would have just sat vacant and not really been a resource for the school or a food producing resource for the community. I think that growing food in the city is important, and because we live in a space that is so densely packed, we don't have a lot of vacant land, we don't have a lot of farmland, and so it's important to be able to be innovative in finding spaces that are underutilized to be able to use them for food production.
We find that genetically modified foods are very present in our North American food system.
I love to raise awareness about GMOs because there are many issues associated with them, including health issues and environmental issues.
If we release GMOs increasingly into the environment, we seriously risk destabilizing ecosystems.
Avoiding GMOs can be very challenging because, as folks have heard, upwards of 90% of the crop in North America for corn and soy in certain regions is genetically modified.
Monsanto is the largest seed company in the world, so it's their seed, their genetically modified seed, that ends up throughout the food chain.
Today we're marching against Monsanto, but in all reality, we're marching against all corporations who put corporate wealth ahead of human health and our environmental health.
Monsanto is a company, a biotech company, so they create GMOs. This march today is global. It's happening all over the world right now. Protests are extremely important for raising awareness about GMOs and Monsanto because, let's face it, most of the public doesn't know about GMOs. And until you let them know, how are they going to make a difference about it?
Almost all genetically engineered ingredients are genetically engineered for one of two reasons. The first reason is so that the plant produces its own pesticide. The second reason is to genetically engineer the plant so that it is resistant to a herbicide. In the past, when you spray a herbicide, you can only spray a certain amount, because if you spray too much, it'll kill the crop as well. You can engineer a plant so that it actually doesn't die when you spray a herbicide. You don't have to worry. You can spray as much herbicide as you want. You can kill every last weed.
The issue is that you can't take these pesticides off of our food. It's gone into our soil, it's gone into the plants. Now you can no longer wash it to take the pesticides off. You're eating the pesticide.
The best way to avoid GMOs and pesticide is to choose certified organic products. Every certified organic standard in the world prohibits the use of GMOs, so you can confidently avoid them. We were the first certified organic retailer in Ontario in 2009, and we do a one-stop shop for organics is a great description. All of our farmers who raise animals for food, for the big carrot, are committed to raising those animals without the use of synthetic hormones or antibiotics. When it comes to GMO feed, we really recommend choosing certified organic because that is the only traceable, regulated system for non-GMO feed in Canada.
Organic certification is our promise to the customer that the food is grown according to the values the customer is bringing to the table. And so we avoid the use of toxic, persistent synthetic pesticides, and we encourage practices that build the soil and support biodiversity. For most people to go straight from a conventional grocery cart to 100% organic grocery cart is a big leap. We encourage people to go easy on themselves, to make one change at a time and start with the Dirty Dozen.
The Dirty Dozen is a list generated by the Environmental Working Group in the United States measuring the levels of pesticides, and the Dirty Dozen is the top 12 of those. It's great for when you're budgeting and you have to make a choice, maybe. The Clean 15 is the exact opposite of that list, just highlighting which fruits and vegetables contain the least pesticide residue so that you can buy those with a good degree of confidence that you're not exposing yourself to high levels of pesticide.
In a way, we are part of a large experiment where the long-term testing of the safety of genetically modified foods hasn't been done. All of the data that's used, the science that's used to make decisions by our government about safety, all of that is privately owned corporate data with some exceptions. So actually, we don't know what studies have been done for the most part. We don't get to see the science that's behind the decisions to allow these foods onto the marketplace. There's been a lot of pressure on this question of scientific safety, as if science can decide one way or other right now whether these products are safe. The fact is we're eating them, they better be safe, but we've seen communities of scientists coming forward and saying, actually that's not the consensus. We still have a lot of questions to ask and answer, and we haven't asked those questions yet. We haven't done those studies yet.
I am so excited for our next speaker. He is truly a lifesaver. Dr. Shiv Chopra's name has become synonymous with food safety. We have to put our hands together for is Dr. Shiv Chopra helped to ban bovine growth hormone in 1999. Thank you!
I didn't know what GMOs were until a genetically modified product came to my desk at Health Canada. Well, I worked at Health Canada for 35 years. One of those products came at that time, back in 1988, was a genetically modified bovine growth hormone. And I asked questions, what research have you done? They said, we don't need it. It's the same hormone that the cow produces. I said, no. The law says you must test and show me the results. Years later, we found that the tests had been done and all my fears were true. That hormone produced all kinds of damage to the cow, and then that milk had pus in it, that milk had antibiotics in it, that had cancer-causing other hormones. So these kinds of things can be triggered.
Roundup Ready is Monsanto's herbicide-tolerant technology, and it's the most prevalent genetically modified technology on the market.
For the Roundup Ready soybeans, what they do is they make them resistant to pesticides and herbicides, so they can spray thousands and thousands of pounds of these pesticides and herbicides on the crops without killing them.
Now Roundup is a mild chemical. It doesn't kill people right away, but it does have a very long-term effect. In our gut, there are bacteria, healthy, useful bacteria. They have a mechanism that they can resist, but now when you put Roundup, you kill them off. And that's connected to your brain, that's connected to the whole system. And when you kill these organisms, now you set up diseases in the intestine. So gluten intolerance or celiac disease, all kinds of other diseases that go on.
Approximately 75% of conventional grocery could contain genetically modified organisms. And it's important to remember when we hear that number that that's really about the traditional center aisles of the grocery store, right? The processed packaged food.
So it doesn't mean that a GMO is necessarily in the box, but it might mean, for example, my slice of bacon was fed GMO feed. And so maybe the bacon isn't genetically modified, but the pig's diet was.
Many people, when they think about genetically modified foods, don't consider the meat and milk on the grocery store shelves, where actually most of the genetically modified crops in the ground, the corn, canola and soy, are used to feed animals in our food system.
The 4 GM crops currently being grown in Canada are corn, soy, canola and sugar beet. So when you think about those crops, those are really the building blocks of the processed food system. The only whole genetically modified food currently being grown in Canada is GM sweet corn. So it's really important when you're buying sweet corn now in Canada to choose certified organic.
Another label that we've developed as a sector, as a response to the GMO threat, is the non-GMO project label. It's a rectangular blue label with a butterfly on it, and it's your assurance that that product has actually been tested for GMO residue.
The Non-GMO Project is North America's only third-party labeling for food, non-GMO food and products. That's particularly important in an environment with no mandatory labeling, and we are very proud to have been a part of that.
In 1999, I was working at the Big Carrot Natural Food Market, and that's when I first learned about GMOs, and when I learned about it, it outraged me. So I went to the Standards Committee and I asked them if we could propose a policy to membership in order to ask them to make a vote to remove GMOs from the store. But it was enough of a stepping stone that the Big Carrot acquired recognition internationally, and then when there was a group of people in the US that were wanting to start up this non-GMO project, they partnered with the Big Carrot in order to formally establish it.
It's now the fastest growing label in the natural food sector. There are 20,000 products that have the verified logo on it now, which means that consumers can make that choice if they want to avoid GMOs.
The fact that genetically modified foods remain unlabeled today is a real concern for us.
There are countries that have labeled genetically modified foods, over 60 of them, and which is why North America, Canada and the US are really the exception globally on that issue.
Given the opportunity, if someone said, do you want something GMO or something not, most people would say not, right? So if they can choose for themselves, that's the best way.
Gardening in the city can be a challenge if you live in a house or a high-rise without a backyard. But if you're keen on growing your own food, you can transform your balcony into a garden or join one of many community or allotment gardens in the city.
Hi, I'm Nancy Bennett. Welcome to my balcony garden. When you have no backyard, you live in a condo, it's valuable space to grow some greenery, get some nature in your life, and get some good healthy food that you've grown yourself back into your kitchen. I grow a lot of flowers on my balcony, but in terms of edibles, I've been growing cherry tomatoes and they're doing fairly well. They're still pretty green, but you can see it's a pretty full bunch down here. And these flowers will all turn into cherry tomatoes, and I'll be picking them and throwing them in my salads. Further along here, I've got the basil that goes with the tomatoes in the salad. It grows very, very well. This area is shady, and it does well with a half day of shade, so it'll grow really well through the whole summer. My poor little chives just barely made it through the winter, so I'm not expecting too much from them, but they do grow well normally in this area. And then my new addition to the garden is peas. If you eat them when they're very young, they're very thin like this one. You can eat the pod and the peas and everything, or you can wait till they get fat and then you have fresh peas. You can grow lots of different vegetables and herbs. It's important to stay with things that are compact, that don't travel, like a squash vine that travels for feet. Like, you wouldn't want that on a balcony garden. But things like cherry tomatoes that are fairly compact, peppers, lots of herbs. You could grow strawberries that are in a hanging basket. Different plants need different amounts of sunlight, and here I get morning sunlight, and most of my edible plants are in the morning sunlight area of the balcony. There are other plants that grow very well in shady areas of a balcony, leafy green vegetables like lettuces and things like that, chard, and you can grow herbs with a fair bit of shade on your balcony, and there are some kinds of strawberries that you can grow in the shade pretty well. Being in a high-rise, the bees don't come this high, so they don't help with the pollination at all. Some people will hand pollinate with a Q-tip going around from flower to flower, and that would help with that problem. When you buy your seeds, or on the little tags of the seedlings that you buy, they'll tell you how far apart to plant them, and you can judge from that how big a pot to start off with. If I want lettuce on my sandwich, I can just come out and pick a few leaves of lettuce. If you're using tomatoes, they taste fabulous. You take them off the plant, slice them up, and the great thing is, it's fresh.
Hi, I'm Kathy Ord. I'm the membership coordinator of Fort York Community Garden here at Fort York, and I'm also a community gardener, and I've been here since 2008. I have a balcony to garden on, but it limits the size of plant that you can grow. Like, you can't really do a squash plant. It needs deep, ground. Carrots need a lot deeper soil.
Where I live, in an 8-story high-rise, I have a little balcony with a few pots on it, but there's no sense of being in touch with the earth. We put flowers, marigolds specifically, amongst the vegetables because somehow the bugs and pests are repelled by the chemistry there.
I consider myself a new gardener, fairly new, but the experience has been pretty easy because every seed is different. The seed packet that you would have usually describes the seed and what's going to grow from it, but also gives you planting instructions. So it tells you the plant depth and the seed spacing and row spacing. Some seeds are so tiny, it'd be painstaking to put them in individually, so I'll sprinkle them out. For instance, carrots, and then when they start to grow up, you can see then where your row is going to be and thin them.
There are approximately 20 full-size boxes. Initially, we didn't charge anything, but then it became apparent we needed to have money to buy more tools, to get more soil and compost in to fix the beds. Well, the fee, that's an annual fee. So we started charging $25 per plot, and each plot is like half of our boxes, 4 by 8 feet. To join a community garden, you can go to the website of the Toronto Community Garden Network. There are about 60 community gardens listed, and it has a map that shows where they all are. So you can choose the one that's closest to you, and there's contact information there that you can actually get someone like myself. If you were to apply for the garden today, your name would go on my wait list, and then you'd have to wait until either somebody leaves the garden or we get a grant to expand and build more. And we do have a strict rule that you must be within 3 kilometers.
Not everybody has a cottage. Not everybody can be in touch with nature other than a stroll in the park, you know. I think every little green patch where the city can facilitate community gardens, they should take advantage of that. We have lots of condos. What we need is to preserve as many green spaces as we can and have people in the condos have a place to go.
Hi, my name is Pat, and I have an allotment garden down here on Leslie Street. The Leslie Street allotment garden has about 250 plots, and I think it's the largest one in the city. The City of Toronto has 11 outdoor allotment gardens and 1 indoor allotment garden. The difference between an allotment garden and a community garden is based on the scale of it. Generally, an allotment garden is larger. A community garden has a different management structure set up. An allotment garden is run by the city. You rent a plot, and once you have a plot, you get to keep it until you stop paying rent for it.
So the first Monday in February, the City of Toronto starts taking names for the wait lists for the garden plots throughout the city. And as of 8:30 when the office opens, it's almost essentially impossible to get through on the telephone. So it took me about an hour that morning to get myself on the list, but I was able to get on the list. And then after the folks who held the original garden plots had the opportunity to pay for them, if they chose to give them up, then they were given to folks who were on the wait list. I was one of the lucky ones who got one.
It's about $80 per year, tax included, to rent an allotment garden, which is pretty good considering it's about 18 by 18 feet. The first year that you get an allotment garden, you're going to get there and your garden's going to be full of weeds. I let the weeds grow in my garden until I'm ready to use the space. And I do that because I don't like to leave the soil exposed. I like to have there be something planted in it so that there are roots that are holding onto it and keeping it in place so it doesn't blow away. Over here we have a patch of clover. Now I've been weeding, but I left the clover alone. And the reason I left the clover is because it helps to fix nitrogen into the soil and nourish the soil.
One of the great things about the city is that on the Commissioner Street depot, they have a giant pile of compost that they put out every year. So people from across the city can come down and actually load up containers and take free compost home to fill the gardens.
I think it's important for the city to make allotment gardens available to people so that they can have a connection to the outdoors. And I think that it's necessary for us as a civilization to have that connection with our food and to be able to establish it, and that all food doesn't come from boxes.
It really gives you the opportunity, getting dirty, getting your hands in the dirt, really kind of connects you with the earth. And then the added bonus is at the end of it, after a summer of working hard and slaving in the hot sun, you have some of the most fresh and fantastic food available.